G'day everyone. Today I am taking a look at this week's new offering from Chris Duane at Silver Shield. It is a 2 ounce Be Your King proof silver medallion. To be your own king, you must be ready for the challenges it presents. From an earlier podcast from Chris Duane, the creator of Silver Shield, he speaks of taking on the challenge of becoming his own king. Chris references a book by Dr. Robert Moore called King, Warrior, Magician, and Lover. It's in regards to the 4 archetypes of a fully grown, mature, masculine man, and is the focus on the Be Your King. The 4 major forms of the mature masculine energies are the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover. They all overlap and ideally enrich one another. A good king is always also a warrior, a magician, and a lover. And the same holds true for the other 3. So we're mostly just focusing on the king, while there are another 3 archetypes. The king energy is primal in all men. In old civilizations and traditions, the king provides order, fertility, and blessing, for he is centered. Throughout history, cultures have often placed the king at the center of the universe. From him radiated all of existence. If you look at how ancient civilizations laid out their cities, we often see that the dwelling place of the king, or leader, sat at the center. In addition to serving as the geographic center of his realm, the ancient king also represented its spiritual center. He was the intermediary between heaven and earth. Through his divine powers, the king brought order to the universe by reconciling opposite forces. Myths abound of kings battling evil demonic creatures and establishing order in chaos. When a man is living the king archetype in its fullness, he feels that same centering power within himself. Not that he believes the world revolves around him, but rather his confidence, purpose, and well-being give him a supreme sense of balance. Even when the world around him becomes chaotic, he remains cool, calm, and collected. He acts rather than reacts. He's the rock in a crisis. A man fully engaged with positive king energy is completely present as a man. Because of his position at the center of things, he can survey everything that is going on, soak it all in, and then take a broad view of things. This overarching perspective allows him to remain immovable, indomitable, in the face of the passing and the superficial. The king archetype is the most important of the 4 mature masculine archetypes. Just as a good king in mythological stories is often something of a Renaissance man, a good warrior, magician, and lover, the king archetype incorporates the other 3 mature masculine archetypes in perfect harmony. A man who accesses the king archetype in its fullness will also have accessed the warrior, the magician, and the lover archetypes. For this reason, the king archetype is typically the last of the mature masculine archetypes to power up in a man's life. In this way, it is truly the crown of the other archetypes, the energy that gives a man a sense of his full godlike potential. He is decisive. The king is the executive of the other archetypes, and as such is charged with making decisions. His ability to be decisive is rooted in 2 things. First, who he is and what he stands for. The king's core values are centered on firm and unchanging principles, so when a crisis comes, he does not waver because he has already determined the course he will take. Secondly, the king seasons his decisions with experience. His experiences provide him with practical wisdom, the knowledge of how to do the right thing at the right time for the right reasons. He lives with integrity. The word integrity is related to the roots of words like integrate and entire. In Spanish, it is rendered integro, which means whole. Integrity thus implies the state of being complete, undivided, intact, and unbroken. Integrity is really the bond that holds a man's other virtues together. It is the mark of a man who has successfully integrated all good principles in his life as a unified whole. The king has not only integrated all other archetypes, but seeks this wholeness in other areas of his life as well. He mends broken relationships, keeps his word, acts with honesty, and takes responsibility for his actions. He is who he says he is. He doesn't have one set of principles for Sundays and one set for the rest of the week. He protects his realm. Historically, one of the king's primary functions was to protect his dominion. When enemy forces encroached on his territory, a king would act with wrathful aggressiveness.
This is where we hold them! This is where we fight! This is where they die! And these shields, boys!
Even today, we look to our leaders as protectors. For example, President of the United States of America is the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. He is charged with the responsibility of protecting the nation's security. While a man might not be a leader of a country, he certainly has his own realm he is responsible for protecting, whether that protection be physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual. If you're married with children, your home is your realm, a place you want to make a refuge from negative influences. The department you're responsible for at work is another sphere where you work to protect your employees from infighting, mediocrity, and layoffs. And your own physical psyche and personal boundaries are sovereignties that you must protect and defend with zeal. Whatever your realm may be, when you're accessing the King archetype in its fullness, you do what you have to in order to protect them, and this often requires accessing the aggressiveness of the warrior archetype.
Give them nothing, but take from them everything!
One of the history's first written set of laws. These laws touched on all areas of life for ancient Mesopotamians, including trade, religion, and military service. Other famous kings and lawgivers included Solomon of ancient Athens, Lycurgus of ancient Sparta, and Moses. While technically not a king, Moses was a leader of the ancient Hebrews. Just as these ancient kings provided order to their respective societies, so does a man accessing the king archetype establish order in his own life and in the lives of those around him. We see the king manifest itself in us when we establish rules, guidelines, and principles for others to follow. A man accessing positive king energy doesn't create rules so that he can reap the satisfaction of watching other people obey him. Rather, his rules provide the structure that allows for other people to flourish. Figuring out how to create rules that help instead of hinder people's progress requires the kind of thoughtful reflection that comes from accessing the magician archetype. That his power and influence in the world increases as he empowers others to live to their fullest potential.
That they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
He blesses the lives of others. One of the functions of ancient kings was to bless those whom they led. As intermediaries between the gods and earth, the king had the power to bless his people so that they might prosper. Simply recognizing and honouring others for their achievements is a way we can bless others. As we get older, I think we take for granted the power that a kind word can have on a young person's life. Think back on your own experience. Remember when you were young? How did you feel when an older person, especially someone that you admired, gave you a compliment or went out of his way to recognise an achievement? If you were like me, it made you feel pretty damn good. You might have stuck your chest out a bit more, or walked with a bit of a spring in your step. You probably even still remember those exact words they said to you. And that is the power of blessing in action. It uplifts and edifies others. We can also bless others by becoming a mentor One of the reasons so many young men are struggling today is because they lack positive mentoring from older men. As we grow older, wiser, and more in touch with the King Archetype, it is our responsibility as men to bless and assist younger men on their path to mature masculinity. That's it for today. The Be Your King 2-ounce pure silver medallion will only be available to order for 1 week. You can order yours either direct from Golden State Mint in the USA. If you're in Australia or New Zealand, look us up at silvershieldcollective.com. You can also find a community of friendly, like-minded collectors over on Facebook, see links below, or you can join the official Silver Shield group for exclusive weekly releases. All information can be found in the links below. Thank you.